Honest thoughts on Starliner? Hope it gets better. It's fine, dude. I did a bad. I let the insanity get to me today, which is that's my mistake. That's my fault. No, we could sit and chill and talk about space. That's fine. I can keep doing that. That's okay. Honest thoughts about Starliner. Erudite, it's not a bad design. It's not a bad design. It's not a bad capsule. The whole idea with Boeing. Seriously, stop. I'm all right. We'll answer this question and then we'll play it by ear. Okay. The whole idea why commercial crews selected Boeing and SpaceX is because that supposedly Boeing, well, at least what we were told is that Boeing would be the tried and tested option. And I did bring this up at the time, but I guess it makes sense. I did bring this up at the time. They said that Boeing is the tried and tested option. You would think, that Boeing. So, Boeing made the space shuttle, technically. At least they own the intellectual property of the space shuttle. They made the S-1C for the Saturn V. That was actually Boeing. They ended up buying companies that produced the Apollo Command Service Module, like I said, the shuttle. And Boeing themselves built the external tank, the external orange tank. You'd think they have a lot of aerospace experience engineering spacecraft hardware. I did bring this up at the time, that they were the tried and tested option. A couple of years later, when, we kind of got winds that things were going a little wonky with Starliner, particularly centering around Boeing basically buying Soyuz seats, so seats on the Soyuz, and basically selling them to NASA to make up for the fact that their capsule was delayed. I started thinking about this for a second, and it really comes down to this. And once again, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. When has Boeing ever engineered a manned spacecraft? Think about it. I just said that Boeing operated the shuttle for a long time. The truth of the matter is that Boeing acquired the companies that engineered the shuttle and acquired all their technical expertise. But when has Boeing ever engineered their own spacecraft in-house from the ground up? Never. Never. Making external tanks and making first stages for rockets is not making spacecraft. Those are two different skill sets. Now, don't get me wrong, there should be some overlap somewhere, right? But making human-rated spacecraft is not the same as making stages. Human-rated spacecraft are by far and away the most complicated things that we send up into space by a long shot. Oh yeah. Look at how complicated the ISS is. And that's all that thing is designed to do is designed to keep 6 people alive and doing scientific research. Look at how complicated it is. Look at the space shuttle. Notoriously complicated. The space shuttle is one of the most complicated machines we've ever made. It's only designed to stay in space for a week. And Boeing didn't engineer it. Rockwell did. Boeing operated it. Fine. Boeing has never engineered a human-rated spacecraft. Ever. They've never done it in-house. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not to say there is crossover, like I said. That's not to say that they can't retain that they wouldn't retain that technical ability and have the expertise to be able to do it. But at the end of the day, most of their experience is in manufacturing external tanks. Manufacturing ETs, manufacturing Saturn V first stages if you go back far enough, and operating spacecraft is Boeing's. Operating spacecraft is what they have way more experience in because they bought the company that owned the space shuttle. They merged with Rockwell in 1993, right? And They basically, what NASA did to save costs in the 90s, what that was, they spun off shuttle operations into a private contractor, which is funny to me because the space shuttle was technically privately operated. But the space shuttle operations, they did the same thing with us. They did the same thing with SLS. Space shuttle operations, basically everything but actually flying the mission was done by a company called United Space Alliance, or USA for short. NASA spun it off in the 90s to save money. And Boeing basically, USA was a wholly owned subsidiary of Boeing. Anything that had to do with shuttle operations, manufacturing ETs, integrating the stack, putting the shuttle together, basically getting it to the pad, basically everything up until you hit the launch, you get ready for launch day. Then NASA operates the vehicle and NASA provides the personnel. The funny thing is that's basically how Starliner is. Starliner is the same idea, right? But, so Boeing has a lot of experience with operations, but they have no recent experience engineering a spacecraft, just satellites. Boeing does make satellites too. They have no experience engineering a spacecraft. I thought about it after this, and I was like, huh. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a knock at Boeing. Everybody does that. It's low-hanging fruit nowadays, guys. It's low-hanging fruit. Give it a rest. Right? And another thing to understand is that the people that are engineering spacecraft are not the people that are engineering passenger airplanes. Those are two different companies. Not even remotely related to each other. Just, so, yeah. The space stuff is a little bit different than the plane stuff. That's what I'm trying to tell you. All right? So, they've never engineered a spacecraft in-house. So they're starting from scratch. Guess what? This is this exact thing that's kind of been the theme of this entire stream, Erudite. It doesn't matter if you have a ton of technical expertise. It doesn't matter if you have all the money in the world, a multi-bajillion-dollar corporation like Boeing. Throwing money at an engineering problem isn't going to solve it faster. In fact, some people would think that throwing less money at an engineering problem gets it solved faster. Interesting concept. Me, I'm really kind of the maybe you should do what it costs to get done what you're trying to get done. How do you extrapolate cost? Well, go do it and then tell me how much it costs. So, because there's not much technical expertise with Boeing, they're starting from scratch. Yeah, you can use some shuttle-derived components, a lot of pieces. The Starliner is basically the space shuttle in capsule form, with a couple of pretty cool innovations brought to the table. But at the end of the day, you're starting from scratch. It's going to take a while. Engineering spacecraft is difficult. Now, how SpaceX did it was start off with an uncrewed cargo craft, and then basically do most of your testing with Dragon. And that's how SpaceX was easily able to pivot into crew operations. But you got to remember, it still took SpaceX, who had prior experience with capsules, non-human rated, on orbit. Right? They had 4 years of prior experience with a Dragon capsule. Commercial crew was awarded in 2014. The first Dragon capsule flew in 2010. Even SpaceX with prior experience still took 6 years to engineer a capsule. So if somebody with prior experience that's not starting from scratch, and Dragon is a relatively recent design, right, at least at the time, pivoting from Dragon 1 to Dragon 2 is not that bad because all the people that worked on Dragon 1 probably ended up working on Dragon 2. Still took him 6 years. So Boeing, having engineered no prior spacecraft, basically clean sheeting a new design, I'm really not surprised that it's almost taken a decade. That seems pretty much on par with how long it's going to take to do something like that when you're starting from scratch and have no prior technical expertise in said subject matter. That jives right for aerospace engineering. That seems about right. I mean, you could use another comparison to SpaceX. SpaceX was founded in 2002. They didn't get Falcon 1 up and running until 2008. Right? I Actually, it's about 6 years. But then again, engineered. I mean, starting from that proves that starting from scratch, even if you're building something simple like a small rocket, is still difficult. It's very tough. Greetings from the hospital. Nice. Perfect timing from SpaceX. On this day 11 years ago, Dragon first arrived at the ISS. Nice. I think this whole scandal highlights the difference between owning the intellectual property and having the institutional knowledge. Correct. Kind of felt sad when I read the OIG report from 2019 when they revealed that after SpaceX blew up a Falcon 9 in 2016, Boeing leadership went and got $250 million from NASA to start long lead times so they could get Starliner ready in 2017. 6 years later, she hasn't carried crew yet. So, I mean, at the end of the day, dude, it doesn't matter if you're some big honking crazy corporation that's an aerospace contractor. You decide to clean sheet and start from scratch with no prior experience in something, even if you have somewhat technical competency relevance, is still, guess what? Still gonna take time. Still gonna take time. It took about, well, let's see. Let's look at Apollo. First versions of the Apollo capsule came around in 1963. They started doing testing in 67, so 4 years later it didn't work, and then they had it working pretty well by 1968. And that's literally with a blank check. So that's like the most expedient way of doing it. So 63 to 68 is still 5 years. And that's with the technical expertise retained from the Gemini and the Mercury program. So you could argue that the guy that engineered the Mercury capsule being around for the Gemini capsule being engineered and the Apollo capsule being engineered, you could say that they weren't starting from scratch. Mercury capsule first flew in 1960, 62? 1962, and then uncrewed versions before that. The design dates back to 1960. So you go 1960 to 1968, because actually, it's true. One guy designed all of those capsules. Max Fizet is his name. He's literally a genius. Yeah, one guy designed the Mercury capsule, one guy designed the Gemini capsule, and one guy oversaw the development of the Apollo capsule. Max Fizet is his name. He's an aerospace legend. Guy's royalty. Aerospace royalty. So 1960 to 1968, that's 8 years, starting basically from scratch. See what I mean? Still takes time, dude. I wasn't here for your thoughts about the Blue Origin lander design, if you don't mind talking about it. Seriously, I think it's a good design, dude. Really, really smart, really well thought out. It shows that Blue Origin took the L from the HLS program super seriously. And I'm actually super proud of the architecture. I'm super proud of them. That's really, really well thought out architecture. I always thought the 3-stage architecture was stupid. 3-stage down to the moon from Gateway, that's dumb. SSTO. Dude, I said it when they lost. I'm like, it should be an SSTO like Starship, or Dynetics. At what point do you say now this is unreasonable? About now, Hellfish. Yeah, about now. But then again, here's the thing, dude. Firm fixed price contracts for development of vehicles is one of the stupidest things that you can do. And like I said, that seems to be the overarching theme this entire stream. If you say that a project that you know nothing about, you have no idea how much it's going to cost, you can do some stupid budget projection, or you can even ask the company that you want to make the capsule about a stupid budget projection. They're going to lowball you because they want the contract, obviously, right? You can't set a price on something that you haven't done. It's so freaking strange to me why this still happens. That's the one that's weird, like. Because that's the reason why Starliner is in the predicament that it's in. Because NASA said, they said, how much do you think it's going to cost? And Bowie said, well, it's going to cost this. And it's like, okay, we agreed on a contract. And then it didn't cost that. because at the end of the day, you're developing a new capsule from scratch with no prior experience. Anybody that said that, you know, commercial crew being on a firm fixed price system, oh yeah, that's going to benefit us in the long run. Well, with SpaceX, yeah, it absolutely did. Oh yeah, no, with SpaceX, yeah, you could absolutely make that argument. But with Boeing, I don't think you could. Right? I don't think that's right. But also, we don't know if I'm remembering right, SpaceX did jack the price up for the second set of commercial missions. If I'm remembering right, the price of Dragon's gone up since DM2. Yeah, it absolutely has. You know, I'd have to go look at the contracts and see the numbers. And that's Boeing's fault. It's not, and I've said this many times, Hellfish, it's not Boeing's fault. NASA should know better. Look, at the end of the day, NASA's the one handing out the contracts, right? It's not NASA to be like, how much do you think it's going to cost? Oh, it's going to cost $300 million. No spacecraft has ever cost $300 million to make. Yeah, that's fine. Let's do it. Firm fixed price per mission. There you go. What I'm saying is that, look, if you have a kid that's acting up, you don't reward them for acting up. At the end of the day, it's your job to be a parent. NASA is the parent in this analogy. You and Angry Astronaut would be the perfect duo right now. That guy. Did SpaceX take an L on the design cost, or did they come in on budget? Alleviate, honestly, SpaceX is the one monkey wrench in my entire theory about this thing. Seriously, SpaceX, whoever works at SpaceX is either really good at cooking numbers, or SpaceX is actually the real deal. From what I've seen, SpaceX looks like they're the real deal. They're, at the end of the day, they're the folks that work over there are insanely good at project management, and they have pretty dang realistic expectations about how much it's going to cost, and reasonably enough expectations about timeline. Elon, I'm looking at you. But they, you know, see, here's the one thing. You could say it's going to cost more, that'd be fine as long as you do the damn thing. You know, if you say, oh, I need an additional $20 million to re-engineer the batteries, and then you actually go and re-engineer the batteries, then it's not a problem. As long as you don't renege on the original contract, right? Like, Boeing said we can do this and failed. Yeah, but if you're Hellfish, if you have children and your kid gets an F on a book report, is your solution to just go find another kid? See what I mean? No, you stick through it. All right, I'm going to put you up for adoption. I want another one. I'm going to go trade this model for the newer one. Bye. Yup. Send him to the mines. You guys are brutal. Even as a joke. Damn, you have another kid. It's so true. It's true, Panda Man. Oh God, that's too real. Why am I being so cynical today? This is not my style usually, but anyway. Yeah, that's why I got 4. All right, well, you had 4 attempts. Sunk cost is a fallacy applicable in some instances. Yeah, Poison, I understand sunk cost fallacy and what it is, but at the end of the day, I think people that don't understand economics use sunk cost fallacy as a means to justify their regret for investing in said project. There you go. I said it. Well, I invested this much money into this project that's never going to freaking work, and when I didn't see a return on investment, I'm pulling the plug because sunk cost fallacy. Piss off. You have no idea how to spend your money correctly. That's the truth. You know, I was going to figure out a way to Bitcoin or something. Like, I don't know. I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. That's what popped into my head. It's probably not the right way to say it. Just bear with me, okay? Howdy, have you been? I'm all right, Def. Just having. It's been a tough day, man. Yeah, roundabout. Damn, dude. So you're having a bad day too, Def? What the what's with this day? This day sucks, man. I've been having a terrible freaking day. Like, dude, I don't know why. Like, I don't know why this day sucks. I had somebody in chat get to me today. Like, and it's pissing me off. You gonna beaver more today? I don't know. Hey, it's my birthday. It isn't so bad. All right, Jay. Happy birthday, man. Hopefully it's a good birthday. If a good birthday. Yeah. Oh, nice, Rezel. Yeah. 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 See, mildly annoying is how I can just. I think a good way to describe this day, Rezel. Yeah, sure. Opinion on this creature. What's this? Presentation slides on the heat-resistant material used on the Chinese space plane. The kid analogy is a poor one to you. Yeah, of course. Of course it is. Because, Hellfish, the reality of the situation is that there's nothing I can say to change your mind, and you haven't picked up on that yet. What am I looking at here, Forge? The nose reminds me of the MiG space plane. Can you translate? Oh, Bing chilling, Dai Shi. Bing chilling. Sun Zhao Zhou. Bing chilling. Yeah, they're talking about space planes. What do you need me to translate? Sorry, Panda Man. Nothing. God, you're having a good day. I finally got done cleaning bridges on I-80, and the governor gave everybody a half day tomorrow. Neato burrito. That's the Chinese X-37B. She's not a copy of the US one after all. You see that and say that is not somehow influenced by this design because the nose cone is different? Elvis, I want to keep reading what you're saying. Boeing was never forced into the contract. They took it on and bit off more than they can chew. Now, I'm not arguing that Starliner should be shelved, more that Boeing should be punished for their failures. I mean, I get it. Yeah, I mean, Hellfish, that makes sense, dude, but okay, how? How that... Like, what is the penalty for not completing your contract on a timely schedule? Like, like, realistic. Be realistic with me here. What's the penalty for, okay, we should punish Boeing because they said they could do it and they did not produce. What's the penalty here? '77 plus reusability. Neat. Not getting selected in the future. The way you punish a company for their failure is don't offer them the next round of contracts. I'm pretty sure they're not, because by the time Starliner launches 6 times, the ISS is going to be gone. Yeah, dude. Like, what constitutes, like, what's the? I think that's funny enough. That's pretty. Dude, like. Like, I don't know what you want. Like, what's a realistic penalty? Hi, Rocket Guy, by the way. Did we ever find out what went wrong with Starship? Astro,
Discovery, go at
let me
throttle.
put it to you like this. So many things went wrong with that thing that I don't think the total failure of the mission could be attributed to one component. That's how many things broke on that thing when it launched. Rocket Guy, you're in the middle of a cross-country move since graduating. Cool, man. Neat. Find every day they are late. I mean, Manic, all that does is just make... I mean, okay, so, like, I'm sure there are applications where that's a good idea. But all that does is just force you put the company under pressure, and then they're gonna try to give you something that's going to end up getting somebody killed, because it's human spaceflight we're talking about here. You can't... Doing something like that is... Like, that's how people end up getting hurt. Mr. Dr. Rocket Guy, MD, DDS, PhD. Putting them under pressure incentivizes them to cut corners. Yeah, exactly. Happens in my shop every day. Now, Manic, I'm not going to sit there and say that I don't like that, but also, yeah. I would force Boeing to give the intellectual property from a failed project to other companies vying for spacecraft contracts to be able to bid for future contracts. Whew. Spicy. Interesting. I mean, that doesn't... I mean, Hellfish, that doesn't sound like kind of dictatorial to you. I guarantee you no company would sign a contract if that was a contract stipulation, you know? I would never, ever sign a contract for a firm fixed price and a timeline, like a exact timeline-based schedule for any aerospace engineering project, knowing that that could be the outcome. No way. I would not sign that. Even if I'm confident in being able to do it, I still wouldn't do that. Because what's the benefit? You know, you fulfill the contract, you fulfill the contract. You fail the contract, that's it. Bye-bye. What's my incentive for even trying to do that if I'm a business that's trying to make profits? The flip side of that is that you'd have to make the profit incentives, like, very freaking good. Government can and will withhold payment if phases of contract are not met. Now, roundabout, I think that's a much better solution. I don't mind that. What is this, Bandit? Atlas V deserves to fly crew way more. It earned it. The reliability of Atlas V is near unmatched. Poor Atlas. I guess. Hey, was that Dynetics a Leidos company? Is that a crane? that's built into the back of a C-130. That's a crane that's built into the back of a C-130. All right. Well, that's pretty neat. My day just got a little bit better. Dude, look at it folded the wings. Isn't that plane meant to drop things? The C-130 or the drone? I think this is an airborne recovery demonstrator. Now, for what application? I have no idea, Wolfie. Yeah, probably. But what would the application for this be? Reconnaissance drone. So think about it. A UAV. Okay? So an unmanned aerial vehicle like a Predator or a Global Hawk or something like that. Right? Now, those things can just take off by themselves, right? They just take off by themselves. Why the heck do we need to do this? Well, a UAV, especially a reconnaissance UAV in a combat scenario, right, would be able to loiter for a lot longer if it doesn't have to worry about expending fuel on takeoff. Takeoff is one of the most fuel inefficient parts of an airplane's flight. Why? Airplanes are not designed to fly down here, they're designed to fly up there. If you have a drone or a UAV that you can deploy out the back of a C-130 and can recover out of the back of a C-130, that UAV could theoretically use the same amount of fuel as a UAV that takes off and lands, but all of that fuel can be used for doing the actual mission. Longer loiter times. Longer loiter times is better situational awareness when you're on the battlefield. Makes perfect sense to me. You can also eliminate the massive landing gear. Keep in mind, you eliminate the massive landing gear and you're swapping it for a recovery system, which probably still is a little bit cheaper, but yeah. Love the shirt. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. How do you know if a company is a Leidos company? Don't worry. They'll let you know. I would like to add how insanely difficult doing that with an unmanned vehicle is. That's not. Nope. That's not easy to do. I wonder how many you could deploy on a single run, right? Oz, what if that C-130 has like 3 or 4 of these sitting in the back? You could deploy a swarm of reconnaissance drones. Great, you shot one down. All right, cool. There's another one. There's 2 more. And then maybe you have 3 C-130s, in which case you have 12 drones. All right, good luck trying to shoot them all down. Why is the Catcher got SpaceX's grid fins on it? Grid fins are good stabilizers. And keep in mind, grid fins have been used as a stabilizer for munitions and pedos and stuff like this long before Falcon 9 used them. Oh, you shot one down? Cute. Now we know where the SAM is. Bingo. That's what they are envisioning for this type of Hey, Predominant, what's going on? That's, Could New Glenn have a similar flight cadence to Falcon 9? It's gonna have to if that Blue Moon lander is gonna fly on any reasonable schedule, Nova Raptor. What is this thing?
Palletized munitions.
Kratos is the company that made them? Oh, okay.
Promising to provide a near-term means to increase capacity of...
What in the actual...
Palletized munitions enable mobility aircraft to deploy cruise missiles, promising to provide a near-term means to increase capacity of fires. A modular deployment system offers a flexible payload configuration to meet mission requirements. With a...
Basically, mission requirements. How much do you want to blow them up? I want to blow them up 6 times, please.
6-pack configuration.
Kratos is an avionics automation company for defense.
For C-130 deployment. And a 9-pack for C-17.
Ah, yeah. I want to blow them up 9 times. Circle gets the square. Come on down. You're the next contestant on Smile for the Flash.
The missiles and battle management system to communicate, so missions and targets can be updated while the aircraft is airborne. Palletized munitions are compatible with standard airlift.
Gee, that sounds a lot like
They provide a roll-on, roll-off
navigation.
capability with no aircraft modifications. The Air Force Strategic Development Planning and Experimentation
Has the C-17 ever been painted that color?
Office, Air Force Futures, and Lockheed Martin are partnering with Air Mobility Command and Air Force Special Operations Command to conduct flight tests. First up are in-flight jettison tests to demonstrate safe deployment from a C-17 and a C-130, followed by live-fire demonstrations for both aircraft, the first by the end of 2021. Palletized munitions are a potential force multiplier that enable combatant commanders to strike from more airfields and engage more targets, while offering mobility aircraft and crews a rapid transition back to primary missions. Rapid Dragon, bringing more mass to the fight.
Oh, that's what you call that. More mass. Oh. Okay. You know, we're pretty good at this defense stuff. No, that's... I'd say that is a very good off-the-shelf kinetic energy weapon system deployment mechanism. Pretty good for off-the-shelf. Can you list out some of your favorite bands for me, please? What, Bree? Could you imagine a full belly of C5s with those? Yeah, you could literally... I mean, Bandit, like, think about a C5 with a bunch of pallets of those things trying to do strat bombing. You could literally achieve what, like, 40 or 50 B-29s could do in World War II just with one C5. Like music bands. I don't know. Yeah, Tessa, the MQ-58 is what comes to mind. That Kratos company, dude. Yeah, crazy. You forget, we are the nation that air-launched an ICBM just to show that we could. A single C5 could do the work of multiple 500-ship missions of B-29s. Yeah, I know, right? It was, Hellfish, you know what's funny? It was a really, like, kind of, like, oh, that's how good we are at blowing each other up moment when I realized that an A-10 can carry as much as a B-17 in terms of bomb payload, and a 30mm cannon on top of that. I'm like... Yes, you heard that right. The A-10 is a better bomber than a B-17 is. Those planes are not similar in design, but they are. Yeah, and guided munitions, that's right. An A-10 can do what one B-17 can do. That's pretty nuts, man. Oh, boy. A-10 could probably take more punishment, too. I don't know, man. That B-17, I heard some crazy stories of B-17s flying home without a lot of components. Heck, Tessa, one B-17 flew home without any crew, with all the crew, with no crew on board. One B-17 came back to the airfield with no crew. And it doesn't have autopilot either. Correct, right? Yeah. An F-15, if it's set up in a bomber capacity, right? Yeah. Wait, what? Yeah. There was an instance, Tessa, with a B-17 where, if I'm remembering right, the crew thought the plane was going to break up, so they bailed out, and the B-17 ended up landing. Yep. Why are bombers a thing? I thought fighters would be easier to attach bombs to. You can attach more bombs to a bomber, though, T-Man. Ghosts, period, question mark. Bombers also fly much further. We have the very sneaky ability to spoof the radar signal of any aircraft we want. Yeah. Yes, from across the pond. You can say whatever you want about us, but yeah, we're pretty damn good at defense. We'll say that. Pretty damn good at that. That's cool. Looks neat. You were pretty good at it too. Yeah, like 50 years ago, sure. Well, 40. Good policy, Rezel. How do you even coordinate all those assets? Situational awareness is king on the battlefield, Phil. The thing is that situational awareness is king in spaceflight too. Got to know what, in any type of aerospace engineering, you got to know what the thing that you're trying to do, a task, you got to know what it's trying to do. You got to understand the situation that it's in. That's what being a flight controller is all about. But when you're on the battlefield, it's better to know everything about your enemy. Think about it. Okay, you want me to reduce it to its base element? Think about how easy it is to kill people in Call of Duty when you have the UAV overhead. You know where everyone is. It's basically freaking cheating. Manic, you once had an F-18 return with half of the wing missing after coming back from the beach. AAA, Manic, or what? Is the Army made to be better at attack or defense? Erudite, it's not. You're not thinking about it right. It's not whether you can attack or defend. It's not. That's not how we think about things. It would be, if you had to say it that way, it would be more towards attack. What most of the U.S. fighting force is designed to do is be mobile and adaptable and flexible. We can get a tank on anybody's beach within 24 hours, anywhere in the world. It's adaptable, flexible. You can move stuff around. It's really centered around mobility and being able to strike faster than everybody else. CatchNet. Okay. Have you seen this NASA video? I don't know. Skylab 50th anniversary. Cool, man. Neat. We do need to kind of work on a logistical backbone, though. Yeah, it turns out when Turns out when you start hammering commercial shipbuilding in this country with environmental regulations, everyone gets out of the business, and then you have nothing. Then suddenly replacing your transport fleet costs a lot more money because there's no market for it. And you could be damn sure that your enemies aren't going to build it for you. Funny how that works. You couldn't put a tank on a beach in Bolivia, though. There's no beach anywhere in Bolivia, Tessa. Pretty sure you could have a beach that's on a lake too. Just saying. The USS is no longer the world of power. Well, it's not a unipolar world, Artusis. Yeah, if that's what you're getting at. It's a bipolar world, like it was during the Cold War, but history doesn't necessarily repeat, it always rhymes. So. Question, does the Vatican have a river or lake? I don't know. There's a fountain. Okay, we'll drop the tank in the damn fountain, the tank will roll off. Technically a beach, good enough. But the point is that we could get the tank there. The point is that we could get the tank anywhere, you know what I'm saying? What is that thing? God. That's pretty neat. There's a beach in Dubbo on the river. There you go. But, see, predominantly, that doesn't really help my analogy because Dubbo doesn't exist. That is a made-up place. You might as well have said, oh, we have a beach in Narnia. All right. You good? I mean, Erudite, I've been pretty straightforward that I've been having a terrible day. You know, like, nothing particularly bad has happened today. Dude, I get really salty when I run out of patience. And I ran out of patience today. I let the world get to me. I don't know why, but it just kind of happened that way. You wouldn't get into the Vatican. I think it'd be dang hard to dodge all the holy lightning. Yeah, you'd get smited. Can you imagine? Don't let the world get to you. Yeah, FM, I usually don't. For some reason today, it just pushed my buttons, dude. Hokey, that guy that comes and has conversations with himself in chat, he did it again today. He did it again today, and I was done with it, homie. I was done with it, and then chat's like, why are you freaking out so much? I'm like, dude, this guy does this every week. For the last, like, 5 years. At least. I'm like, I only can do this so much, man. You know, like, if you're stressed out, seek your family, don't be a man, go hug it out in chat. I actually talked about it with Chat FM. I talked about what was bothering me, and that seemed to help. But yeah, no. I also know not to keep that pent up. That just makes it worse. Koza, how's it going, man? Oh, it's going good. Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I've seen him in Ozzy's chat for what it's worth. I don't understand, dude. But yeah, no, I usually don't let stuff get to me, especially stuff on the internet. I have about a decade of training here, like streaming, to like explicitly not get pissed off at things. I wonder if Saber will ever get a craft to propel. Hellfish, I'll be real with you since I'm being real all the time. You know, I say we haven't heard anything from Reaction Engines, but I can't help but think that because Boeing and Lockheed, or Boeing and Northrop, or Boeing and Lockheed got involved once they proved out that the pre-cooler could work, that thing is on the front of a hypersonic missile. Yeah, I can't help but think that. We haven't heard anything. We haven't heard anything about Skylon. We've heard nothing. The last thing we heard from Reaction Engines officially was that they had huge defense contractors investing in their pre-cooler technology. Okay, missiles. Yeah, all right, got it. Yep, missiles. Okay. What is this? What's about this new engine I heard that can get to Mars in weeks instead of months? Probably Nerva, Artusis, nuclear thermal propulsion. Yeah, Hellfish. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad way of looking at it. Well, there's 85% go for Electron. Adaptable guidance systems based off of real-time fed information. Yep. Pretty neat. Situational awareness, man. Like I said, situational awareness is key. That's... the military has a hard-on for this stuff. Because you don't want your troops getting shot on the battlefield. Yeah. Who said it? Patton. You know, the whole point of war isn't to die for your country, but make the other poor bastard die for his. Yeah, still relevant. Oh my God. Nice, Creeper. Yikes. The Soviet P-700 Granites were advertised as being able to do something like that in the 80s. You saw a special on the Nerva engine and going to Mars, and old data from the previous program in the 60s and the 70s. Yep. Mm-hmm. We had Nerva engines basically working and operational, and nuclear testing treaties prevented that from happening. Despite that weapon, that never, a Nerva engine would never find its way into a weapon system. Saying a Nerva would be on some type of offensive standoff weapon is like saying an umbrella could be used as a bomb. All right, but they canceled it anyway, and then they canceled the Apollo program, which is good. Great, yeah. We had a working Nerva engine in the late '60s. 900-second specific impulse in atmosphere. Never tested in a vacuum. Oops. Automated battle jitters, assessment of kill or no kill. Yeah. Situational awareness victory, right? This is a concept from a Voyager episode, a fleet of AI-controlled, warp-capable missiles that self-coordinate. Yep. Yeah. Life imitates art, man. Where the heck did you put the bayonet? Aegis doesn't do that without human input. Yeah. Aegis is also 40 years old. Just saying. Hey, Panda Man, are you still here? Yeah, Aerodad, I'm good, thank you. Am I looking at this right? This is a comparison of different thermal protection systems, right? They have Avcode, Pica X. Yeah. Okay. What's the slide title? What does this say up here, dude? If you don't mind me asking. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out when you weren't talking. To be fair, it's not the same Aegis platform it was 40 years ago. Hokie, you're trying to tell me that iterating on the same design over and over again will actually make it better and cheaper over time? You're not wrong. I was just making a point that seemed to have been pertinent from another conversation. But yeah, you're right. That's fair. I know, right? Yeah. Comparison of domestic development of similar material. So they have Pica X over there. Need victory. Yeah. Comparison of ablative materials for domestic and foreign. Oh, okay. Victory, if you don't mind, just right click, search the image with Google. New pane should have a translate tab. My question is, why are they comparing ablator heat shields to a reusable spacecraft? Does that mean to imply that they have an ablate? I think that they have an ablative nose cone on their reusable spaceplane, which is Creeper, you know what that says to me? An ablative nose cone on an X-37 style plane? That tells me that China wants parity. They want parity. That tells me that they're not exactly sure what the X-37 can do, so they made something that's roughly analogous in its capability, and they don't give a frick if it has an ablator heat shield. Missing the entire point that the whole X-37 is supposed to be about rapid reuse. You could basically land it and launch it the next day, which I think is all right. It's Buran. Yeah, same idea. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that they're crappy engineers by any means. That's not easy to do. That's not easy to do at all. It's this is like you sit there and say, oh, it's just a Naga. Well, Buran, it's blatantly influenced by the space shuttle's design. Does that mean Buran was easy to engineer? No. No. Nope. If the ablative shield is basically unbolted and refit, that could be that could be done in an hour or so. Well, Tessa, that says reusability. That says most components are about that basically says right there about 77%, above 77% of the vehicle is reusable. Pit crew style changeout. Yeah, but guys, this isn't an aircraft. This isn't an aircraft. It doesn't take off from the runway. You have to put it in a clean room environment to put it back in a fairing. And changing the heat shield in this regard adds another step to your reintegration. Just Google search the X-37B. Why are there people with hazmat suits when it's landed? Those aren't hazmat suits, Scape. If those aren't hazmat suits, Alleviate. If you wore a hazmat suit near the X-37 after it landed, it'd kill you, or at least you'd be rolling the dice. Those are Scape suits. Scape suits are a chemical corrosion resistant spacesuit, basically. SCAPE. Scape suits are there for offloading fuels. If there's any residual propellant inside of the X-37, they have to evacuate it before the thing is safe to go near. Yeah. Space Shuttle had the same thing, dude. Alleviate, you know that video that I always show, the STS-1 video where John Young goes around and he flips the pen and he was walking around the shuttle? Did you see what he did when he went to the back of the shuttle? He went to the back of the shuttle and said, oh, nope, those are the guys with the escape suit walking away now. Because, yeah, if the shuttle or their X-37B is leaking or our X-37B is leaking hydrazine, you have to sniff for it, and then you have to offload any potential residuals, etc., etc. Yeah. Basically, if it's a one-piece shield. I mean, Tessa, haven't you gotten it by now? Changing the heat shield on a reusable aerospace plane is not changing a carburetor on your damn bike, dude. We're just not at that point. Close. Nice, selfish. Yeah. Buran had to re-enter the atmosphere, and that dictated the shape of the spacecraft. Well, John, if that's the case, why don't Soyuz, Dragon, Apollo, Orion, why don't they all have the exact same shape then? Buran the Soviet engineers... the Soviet engineers at SP Korolev were just happened to come up with the exact same design. No, it's centered around a need. They built Buran to be like the shuttle, not because that was contingent on the design, but because they wanted to match the U.S. capability, because the Soviets looked at the space shuttle and said, why the hell would you make that? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That's literally the most efficient way to go into space. That's the stupidest way to get it. Literally, they got confused. The KGB got confused. They were like, what the frick? What is that? Why would you make this? You have the Saturn V. Why would you make this? This is dumb. And the only thing that they could reasonably surmise is that it was some type of weapon system to skirt the strategic arms limitation treaties and the outer space treaty. So they said, okay, look, we don't know what the hell this is. We're going to build one to match the capability because we don't know what the hell that is. We're just going to build it, and then we'll figure out what it does later. Bueller, 62 months. Thanks, man. Yeah, Aqualex, I don't watch those videos. They get annoying. Yeah, that's right. T-Stoff and C-Stoff. Yep. Obi-Wan, hey, did you happen to watch the Kari launch this morning? Or, yeah. I did. I watched a replay of it real quick, Obi, but it was cool. I'm curious, when the space shuttle completed its mission, was the whole thermal protection system replaced? Some replaced, some were checked erudite. You could see a tile that's been reused if it has a dot in the center of it. A dot is where they inspected the tile, determined that it was good enough to reuse, and then re-injected the adhesive. That's what the dot is. So go Google a picture of the space shuttle. If some of the tiles on it have dots on them, they've been reused. The problem with the space shuttle erudite is that it has 35,000 tiles, and no tile is interchangeable with another one. Didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, Johnny, Soviet engineers even admitted they didn't have the budget to try and make their own type of reusable space plane. They literally just said, all right, fine, we'll look at the shuttles because we don't have the budget to do that. I also love how the fact that they didn't care about money is what led them to be so confused in the first place and miss the point. Yep. Yeah, interesting, Aqualex, because, yeah, the decision was made to just copy the space shuttle shape because they didn't have the budget to do the aerodynamic and hypersonic research. Yep. Weird, huh? But, once again, that goes back to the whole point regarding this Chinese X-37 thingamajigger here. You know, it has an ablator heat shield, right? That kind of defeats the point of making a reusable space plane if it has an ablative heat shield nose cone, don't you think? That kind of defeats the entire point. But does that mean that thing doesn't do what it does? No. It clearly can go up into space and come back down, which is not an easy thing to engineer by any means. Not easy. Things went downhill after Korolev passed. Correct. Korolev was floating. I don't use this lightly. Sergei Korolev is a freaking genius. Genius. Like, of the highest caliber. That guy easily had 170 IQ. Like, if that, like, and I don't even mean like, oh, if you have a high IQ, you're really stupid. Dude, that guy had such a practical such a good grasp of practical rocketry. Like, it's kind of absurd. So, you know, Korolev was basically given a bunch of German V2s, and the Soviet government was like, make these, figure this out and make them. He did that. The guy, and he didn't have any technical expertise. He reverse engineered the V2s basically, but with him and his boys. Like, but it was mostly him, right? You know how hard it is to look at a rocket engine and reverse engineer the damn thing and then make your own? That's extremely difficult. Like, and he was doing this in the 50s. Basically the mid to late 50s. Not only was he doing that in the mid to late 50s, he also understood the application so well that he was able to engineer his own. Like, okay, here's what I'm talking about. All right, if we go in here and we look at the Soviet R1, okay? Korolev worked on this. The Soviet R1. The R1 is literally just a copy of the V2. The US did the same thing. We did the same thing with the bumper rocket. The bumper rocket is just a copy. Okay? Now, the thing is, we had the engineers. That's what happened when Germany got ripped in two at the end of World War II. All the engineers fled to the United States, and the Soviets got all the hardware. Okay? So we did basically the same thing. We had the engineers, right? We're the guy that designed it, that kind of makes it a little bit easier. And I'm not saying that it's like, oh, well, they had it so hard, right? Remember, this is proving it how crazy smart Sergei Korolev was. Okay, so that's the R1. It's basically a copy of a V2, all right? Now, its successor is the R5. The R5, let me look at it. Does that look anything like the R1? The Pobeda? It's not even close. Like, you could tell that it's clearly influenced from the V2's design. Sure, absolutely. Like, thrust control vanes, etc., etc. But elongating the stages, right? It's about the same size, right? You know, this was clearly influenced from this, like, right? And you could say that, I know what you're going to say, like, okay, how does that, so, how does that explain that Sergei Korolev was really, really smart? They went from that to the Semyorka, which is this. Does that look in any way, shape, or form related to a V2 or the R1 or the R5 in any way? If I showed you a picture of the R1, the R5, and the R7, you could make a reasonable argument that the R1 and the R5 are kind of similar because they kind of are. But he clean sheeted he's like, okay, I understand this enough, and literally cranked out that thing. The Semyorka, which modern Soyuz, even the modern version of Soyuz, the Soyuz MS, which literally stands for Modernized Soyuz, is still based off of this architecture because it's that freaking good. The point that I'm trying to demonstrate here is that the guy was literally handed a bunch of hardware and said, re-engineer this or you die. Well, not that. They weren't that crazy. I mean, they kind of were, but you get the idea. The fact that he was able to understand and grasp the concept so ridiculously well to the point where he basically engineered his own orbital launch vehicle by himself. He's the guy that engineered it. And then on top of that, engineering the spacecraft for it as well is a little bit ridiculous. Think about it. Korolev engineered the launch vehicle. He was the chief designer on the launch vehicle. And it's the Soviet space program, so what he says goes. He engineered the launch vehicle, which is completely homogeneous design. Like, that is all him. It is not influenced by the V2 in any, like, it doesn't have common components or any influence from the V2 in any way, shape, or form. The guy understood rocketry so well, he looked at it and said, okay, I get this. I'm going to make it, yeah, let's do this way. The adaptation and being able to have such a fundamental understanding that you crap out something like the R7, and then on top of that, crap out Vostok and Voshchod and Soyuz on top of it. He designed all of those. He designed the rocket that put the first satellite into space. He designed the spacecraft that flew on his rocket that launched the first person into space. He designed the rocket and the spacecraft that did the first manned EVA in space. It's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous. One guy, one dude did all of that. That is nuts. That's a lot of engineering, man. Especially when you literally are going off nothing. There's no prior. There's no prior. How do you put somebody's... And yeah, he did design the N1 as well, beefy, but Sergei Korolev got killed at a routine medical... He had complications from routine medical surgery in 1966. That is the reason why the Soviets lost the space program. Yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why the N1 never worked right. Because after that, there was a power vacuum, and... and there were other design bureaus that basically didn't... There were other design bureaus run by other rocket engineers that basically hated Korolev. They hated him. Because he got all the success, and they didn't. Another brilliant Soviet propulsion engineer named Valentin Glushko, he hated him. He couldn't stand him. So when he died, he was basically like, "Oh, that sucks. Man, that's terrible. Oh, wow, it's going to be really hard for them to finish that rocket with their chief designer dead. Yeah. Oh, look, it has problems. Jeez, that sucks. Why does the V2 look so smooth? So comical. Comical? What do you mean? It's the equivalent of being given an ME-262 and coming up with a MiG-21. Something like that. The ability to improve upon the design is the mark of a good engineer. You're given something, and then you can reverse engineer it and then make it better than the original version. That's the adaptation, is how you can tell somebody knows what they're doing with engineering, because wielding physics like that is not an easy thing to do. You have to be pretty smart to do it. Soviet-Russian rocket engines have advanced remarkably little since his death, even until today. Glushko was a propulsion engineer, Jacoby, and he basically was one of the chief designers on Buran Energia, if I'm remembering right. And Glushko is kind of the reason why the RD-170 and its family of rockets, RD-191, RD-171MV, the RD-180 that flies on Atlas V, that's a result of him. Most of that oxygen-rich stage combustion cycle research that he did on twin nozzle designs, that is based off of the NK-15 and the NK-33, was done in the late 70s, early 80s. And then on top of that, Glushko was a huge proponent of hydrolox, something that the Soviet High Command didn't really like. But Buran Energia came out with the RD-0120s, which was literally their first attempt at building a hydrolox engine, and it's pretty not bad for a first attempt. Those are the core stage engines on Buran and on Energia, excuse me. It's pretty good for a first attempt. And you know what the crazy thing is that at the end of the Cold War, the Russians were looking at oxygen-rich stage combustion cycle with methane. Yep, that's what they were doing. Something that everyone is doing now. And that research basically died with the Cold War. Yeah, they were looking at using methane because it's a fully cryogenic intermediate propellant that's all around good for basically everything. You can use it for a first stage, you can use it for a second stage. Yeah, easy peasy. And it's funny because that was actually right. That was the right idea. Damn, 40 years of research just halted. Nah, Beefy, it's not even 40 years of research, man. The entirety of the Buran Energia program is basically lost, except for the RD-170. The Zenit and the RD-170, more kind of, if we want to be more specific. All that technical expertise, dude. Down the friggin' tubes, man. That sucks. Like, it still bums me out to see wrecked pictures of Buran, just because, like, look, it's one thing to engineer a space shuttle, all right? And don't get me wrong, that's really difficult to do. Reverse engineering a space shuttle and then making it work I wouldn't say that's as hard as engineering it in the first place, but it's almost as hard as engineering it in the first place. It's really close. And then engineering a heavy launch vehicle, a super heavy launch vehicle that could launch with or without the shuttle in one integrated architecture, that's extremely difficult to do. Like, I honestly think that's on par with difficulty of like Starship. Yeah, that's not easy. Yeah, you're talking about Bill Gerstenmaier, Aqualux. Yep. Mm-hmm. Could you help me out? It's Bill Gerstenmaier. Yeah. Gerst basically went on record saying that the reason why they refurbished and took apart the space shuttle every time is because The reason why they took apart and reassembled the space shuttle every time is because that's the only way to be absolutely 100% sure that the engines won't malfunction. Now, the funny thing is, Aqualets, is that face value, that actually seems pretty smart. That's okay, sure, yeah, that makes sense. That's okay, yeah, you'd want to take it apart every time. Well, anybody that knows anything about mechanics knows that that is a whole crap ton of effort for a little safety gain. Yeah. If anything, it pushes at best. Taking apart a rocket engine and putting it back together is honestly maximizing the possibility that someone's going to not reassemble the engine correctly. The reason why is because humans are taking apart the engine, not the machine. What if the guy, he's working on putting the thing and somebody say, "Hey, Bill, can you come over here for a second?" "Oh, yeah, okay." "Oh, what was this torque spec again?" See what I mean? That right there seems like the right thing to do, but it's actually not. The right thing to do was, if you have to take apart your rocket engines every time the shuttle flies because you're afraid they're going to malfunction, that's not addressing the root cause that the engines could malfunction. Maybe you should fix that. It's the same reason why flight-proven Falcon 9 boosters are now cheaper to insure. It's hilarious to me, Aqualex. Yeah, it's hilarious to me that the less Falcon 9 the less interaction a Falcon 9 has with humans, the safer it is to fly. That's hilarious. And that just kind of goes in the back of my head. I'm like, holy crap, dude. If they had done that with the space shuttle, maybe the space shuttle wouldn't have had as many problems. Yeah, exactly, Poison. It's crazy, dude. So, you got to give credit where credit is due. Soviet engineers were very, very good. Some of the talent that came out of that place, it sucks that it all went down the drain. That's like nightmare scenario, dude. Do you think NASA should revive the shuttle and modernize it and keep the same general design? No. Start from scratch. Do something else. Erudite, what did I tell you? What did I tell you about trying to bring something back that's flown previously when you don't have any of the people that worked on it? Don't do that. Bad idea. Even if you have the hardware, bad idea. It's tempting. Don't do it. It's better to just clean sheet the design. If we are what if the space shuttle sometimes flew with the autopilot? We would be able to innovate. Yep. Yeah, not giving the space shuttle the ability to autonomously land was a pretty big oversight, but you got to remember, at the time when the shuttle kind of came about, computers were pretty advanced. Avionics computers were pretty advanced, especially coming off the end of the Apollo program, right? But they weren't advanced enough to be able to autonomously land. That technology just wasn't there yet. It was close. We were on the cusp of it. The Buran ended up doing it. We were close. But also, that's not to seem to imply that we couldn't have done it either. We probably could have figured it out. It probably would have taken a little bit longer, but we probably could have figured it out. I mean, we're talking the U.S. defense industry during the Cold War. We absolutely could have figured it out. It just would have taken some time. But you got to remember that that's not the shuttle. The shuttle was supposed to be a space plane. So when you think about it in that context, like moving people in cargo to space, the space shuttle is not necessarily analogous to like Falcon 9, where it flies automatically and people are just flying, watching like crews just flying and watching the controls. The shuttle would be more analogous to a C-130 that flies into space, and the idea of making a C-130 basically land by itself with no crew on board and just cargo is a little strange, don't you think? I mean, could we do that? Oh yeah, sure, of course we could do that. Why wouldn't we? Or why couldn't we? Of course we could do it. Getting the shuttle back would be committing to our own Buran project. Humans are mistake factories. There's a reason why, despite all the checks, an aircraft coming out of maintenance still needs to go on a certifying check flight with a skeleton crew before being recertified for flight. Yep. You think it's inevitable that NASA will announce a new shuttle program? No. NASA is never going to focus on moving stuff to low Earth orbit ever again, Erudite. Which is why NASA doesn't care if their launch vehicle is expendable, because having a big expendable launch vehicle that can move stuff out that can potentially move stuff out to the moon in the future means that you get to focus on making interplanetary spacecraft reusable later. Which is the exact reason why I think they selected the Blue Origin lander for sustainable lunar development, because Blue Origin's lander goes through deep space fueling operations, on orbit spacecraft reuse, a lot of good stuff going on. I really like Blue Origin's architecture. The national team Blue Moon Lander Mark II is really good design. I really hope they follow through with it. It's going to be awesome. It's literally the perfect complement. It's the perfect complement to Starship. It's perfect. Starship can move a ton of crew and a ton of cargo, autonomous, crew aboard, not crew aboard, no problem. You could move a freaking Mack truck down to the surface. You could move an entire base in one shot. Heck, Starship could just land on the surface and that could be your base. Done. Easy peasy. You don't need that every time, though. You don't need to do that every time. You got to do maybe like once every 5 landings or something. Like you grow your moon base, right? Maybe you just land a starship and have a bunch of starships landed next to each other and you make a nice village of starships. Does that mean, you have... like you don't have to do that every time. There might be a case where you just want to send people to said starship lunar base, right? Or the lunar base that's made out of starships. You don't need to send 100 tons of cargo down every time. So we have a nice, robust, fully reusable, small cargo and person lander, and then we have a nice, really awesome, fully reusable, heavy cargo and crew lander. You got the best of both worlds, dude. You cannot rebuild F1 engines, but we could design a modern F1B, I think. The F1B, John, we could do it. Yeah, I mean, we could. But the F1B, the F1B is so radically different. I think calling it a modernized F1 engine is a little strange. First of all, it's open cycle. The F1 is closed cycle, right? It's closed cycle exhaust, right? The F1B is open cycle exhaust, right? Like even that's such a nutty design change, because if you're going open, they use the closed cycle on the original F1 engine for film cooling the nozzle, right? The F1B has an ablator nozzle. That right there, changing your nozzle design and changing your turbo pump cycle is enough to call it an F2 engine, in my opinion. Yeah. It's not really a remade F1 engine. It's taking the ideas from the F1 and making a new engine, which is a new engine by default. Calling it an F1B, it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer to what that engine could do. That's right, Tessa. Mm-hmm. I'm a journalist in the crowd with a stupid question. Sorry. Your questions aren't stupid, are they? Want a good laugh? Ford is visiting Norway, and Royal Norwegian Airways made posters saying, "See you in 9 months." Okay. Honest question. Do you think SpaceX would have been further along in testing of Starship if they had initially done their launch complex at KSC? No. Probably not, Pythos. I think they would have been further along in development if they had done suborbital hop tests at like Edwards or Holloman or something for like suborbital hops and landings. Yeah, they probably would have been further along that way, but that's not how Elon rolls. He doesn't want to test you know, hopping in White Sands and then launching in Florida, etc., etc. Tries to keep everything together. Were we hung up on EPA impacts? I mean, and if they launched from the Cape, they wouldn't be able to test all the time. NASA wouldn't want them testing near payloads that could jeopardize the logistics change up. Could jeopardize the logistic chains that go up to the ISS. They wouldn't allow them to do it. That's the reason why they haven't been working on the 39A Starship pad. And that's my personal reason why personally the reason why I think SpaceX is building another pad somewhere else. We haven't figured out where they're doing that yet. Somewhere else on the Cape that's not near mission critical architecture like the 39A service tower. Crew service tower. Make sense? Are the letters for an engine like F1 supposed to stand for everything? For anything? No. No, I don't think so. Beefy, the name of an engine, especially when it has a numeric thing, usually denotes some type of internal design naming convention. So maybe they started building this heavy engine, right? And they started with an A engine, and they were like, nah. And then B, and then C, and then D, and then E, and then F, and then they got to the F. They got to the F engine, and that's the engine that they liked, right? And then they baselined the F variant of this heavy lift engine and called it the F1. It's probably something like that. That's the reason why, you know, like Falcon 9 has a decimal point for its naming convention. Falcon 9, you know, 1.3 full thrust block 5 or whatever it's called. You know, Falcon 9 originally used a decimal point naming convention. Falcon 9 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. And then there was, it was Falcon 9 1.2. And they went 1.2 block 1, 1.2 block 2, block 3, block 4, block 5. And now nobody calls it Falcon 9 version 1.2 full thrust block 5. They just call it block 5. So, yeah, it's most likely an internal naming convention, if I had to guess. Honestly, I'm hopeful for that company out of New Zealand. We should be able to do actual rocket-powered spaceplane horizontal takeoff with our tech today. We already saw the benefit of in Falcon 9, considering how much it pitches up during its ascent and flies the booster. Using lift to reduce gravity drag and squeezing out that much more performance by doing so. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. All right, guys. I made it to 8 hours. I'm gonna stop. Okay. I'm gonna take the rest of the night off. I've been soldiering through this entire time. Thank you for keeping up with the good questions. I do appreciate it. Yeah, we'll try to play some Kerbal tomorrow. So what I'm gonna tee up for you guys is, so tomorrow, if Badir 8 actually or Batter 8 actually decides to go, tomorrow what we're gonna do is I'll pop in. We'll play Kerbal right away. I think tomorrow we'll just try to mess with the SSTO launchpad. I'm kind of curious to see what happens. And then after that, may or may not do some work on the truck. I'm not sure. We do have to put the interior in, and I have to fix some wiring in there. Well, by fix it, I mean just kind of clean it up. And then, if the Batter 8 launch goes, I am scheduled to host that cast with Das on NSF stream, but it will be restreamed here. So, yeah, that should be good. Not doing the Electron. Electron is in 3 hours. Just go watch NSF, guys. I'm going to sit this one out. I really don't feel good. I had a crappy day, and I let crap get to me today, so I'm all screwed up. I'm not like... I think just watch it on NSF, dudes. I need to regroup. Usually that just means sleep, but don't worry. Nothing's wrong. I just had a crappy day, and yeah, Even when your job is streaming, you still have crappy days from time to time. Okay. So I'm gonna go. Yeah, you need a drumstick. Get yourself an ice cream. You know what, dudes? I think I will. I'm gonna go to Dairy Queen. Screw it. That's not a bad idea. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow at noontime, we'll get Kerbal in, do some space news. Maybe we'll work on the truck. I don't know. It really depends. And then yeah, we'll cap off this week with the Batter 8 launch if it decides to go. What flavor though? I had a s'mores blizzard from Dairy Queen last time I was there, Gaw, and it was pretty good. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. Sorry about today. I really tried not to let my baggage air out on stream. I apologize, and it's unbecoming, and I don't like doing it. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.